What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Concrete Edge right here on Deco-Crete TV. My name's Jeff, and today we're going to be taking a look at stenciled concrete. Now, this is kind of an old school thing. Not a ton of guys do it anymore, but honestly, I always love this process. So stay tuned, and you're going to learn all about it. So we're out here on site today with Swiss Village Concrete. We're down here in Strasburg, Ohio, and thanks to Swiss Village, Gary and the guys for letting us hang out on their job site today. So stenciled concrete has honestly been around for a long time. This used to be a big part of decorative concrete. I mean, in fact, you know, there was a time, before I got into the industry, but there was a time where this was almost as common as stamped concrete, and stenciled concrete is going to create a little bit different of a look than stamped. And honestly, for like brick patterns or certain like cobblestones, it's a really clean look. Almost looks more like pavers than stamped concrete. And so you can create a completely different look, and a lot of homeowners really do prefer this. And I know nowadays when decorative concrete, we talk about stencils, it's usually some kind of an overlay or some kind of a stain or dye or something like that. This is fresh pour, full thickness concrete, and so these stencils are going to be a little bit different than what you guys know as vinyl stencils or sandblast stencils or something like that. You know, these things come on these big rolls. You can get these in 500 square feet, 1,000 square foot, and this is kind of a paper cardboardy material, and you know, it is able to place right into fresh concrete, and then it's going to pull up at a certain time, and that's what's going to create our grout lines for us. So don't try this with a vinyl stencil or anything else like that. These things are specifically made just for this purpose. Now, one of the big things, and a lot of reason that guys don't really love this, is you do have to throw color hardener, because the way that this works is, you know, we're going to pour the concrete out pretty much like normal, and then, you know, right away, right after that first bowl float, we're going to embed these stencils, and then we're going to start throwing our color hardener on, and that's what's going to create the color of our actual stones. And then we'll end up with some release powder and some stamps or a roller or something like that. But those grout lines, when we pull that stencil up, that's what's going to maintain that gray color. So no matter what, to create this effect, we're going to have to throw color hardener in. So if you guys are new to color hardener or unfamiliar with it, we already have tons of videos on our channel all about color hardener, so make sure you check those out if you're unfamiliar with that process. So one of the first things when it comes to stencils is to be prepared and have these things ready to go. You know, today's job's really nice. We're in the shade back here. It's pretty cool this morning, so it's not as big of a deal, but I poured plenty of these, you know, when you're out in the sun and it's really hot out. And if you're trying to scramble around cutting these things and getting them all right, you know, while the concrete's getting hard, that's not going to go very well. So, you know, have this stuff ready is going to help you out a ton. And another thing, you know, anytime you're working up against a house or something like this, it's always a good idea to have some kind of a big plank or some sort, because, you know, we are going to have to get out on this edge in order to actually set these things in place. And this job also has a border on it, and you can see the border is just, you know, same stencil material, same thing. It's just a border. And so the cool thing about stenciled concrete is we don't really have to worry about cutting the groove in with the groover edger like you would on stamped concrete. The stencil itself is going to be what makes the border. Now, it's also nice to get this, you know, edge really good right here, because you know, once these stencils actually go in, once the border stencils down, or even the stencils that come out over the edges, you really can't run your edger very well over there. So just make sure you get that all done out of the way in the beginning, so you don't have to worry about it later. And the big thing here is that, you know, as soon as this stuff's poured out and as soon as we can get these stencils embedded in, we want to get right to it, because we aren't going to be able to throw any color hardener until the stencil is completely in place and embedded and floated one time. And again, if you're in the sun, this can be stressful. You got to get these things in quick so you can get on to throwing your hardener, get that floated in, and then eventually, you know, we're going to end up throwing some powder release. Now, there is an option here. You know, in today's case, we're going to run some seamless skins out over here, and it's going to give these tops of this cobblestone a really cool looking texture. So to try to match these two pours up as good as possible, the best thing you can do is just kind of figure out where your first saw cut was going to be, and that was going to be right here. And you can see what they did is they pre-measured their stencils also to where this ended up right down in a grout line here. And you know, then today's job, there's going to be the same thing. You know, the new stencil is going to overlap that, and we're essentially going to have this cold joint right where a saw cut's going to be, but also right down in a grout line, and that's going to hide it as good as we can. And then after it's all said and done, we're not going to run any edger along here either. It's just going to get magged down flat. And then, you know, after it's all said and done, there's going to be a saw blade will get dropped down in here, and it'll essentially just look like a saw cut. And this is a great way to, you know, match two pours together and have it look as seamless as possible. So now that we're at this point, everything's all colored out nice, everything's been steel troweled. This is where you do have the option. Now, you know, again, we're gonna stamp this with seamless skins, and if that's what you plan on doing, then honestly, just do your normal thing. You know, right at about the time when you normally get on it with seamless stamps, go ahead and stamp it like normal. And again, we can use powder. We're gonna be using powder release for this. Liquid release works too, although liquid release is a kind of tough for this, because if you're gonna use liquid release, then that means you're gonna have to do some antiquing. And when you antique this, that antiquing is gonna fall down into those grout lines, and it is gonna give it a different look. You know, it's gonna be not quite as clean of a mortar joint in that way. So we really do prefer the look of powder release on this, just because it keeps that real nice clean grout line. Well guys, that's pretty much it for today's video. Thanks to Gary and the guys down at Swiss Village Concrete for inviting us out on the job today. And thanks to you guys for tuning in to this week's video. So leave us a comment if you have any questions on stenciled concrete. So from all of us here at Deco-Crete TV, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.